Hi, everybody. Thanks for tuning in. Thank you for our participants who are here for the MFA student reading. I'm sending my energy out to all of you. I hope you are healthy and safe and able to string together what mental and emotional health you can during this time. And part of doing that as artists is sharing work and listening to other people's work. So thank you for tuning in. We have 11 other readers and we'll get going. I have a quick little poem I can read to kick things off. This one is called Partner. My wife and I have a kitchen sink with a problem faucet. And underneath that sink, there's this rubberish tube and it scrapes against this jagged brass thing. It's going to break one day. And on the surface, where things say pretty, you can pull the faucet out of its housing and fill things up. You can reach unreachables. You can spray jokes at people. Happy Quarantine's Day, baby. My wife came out of a napalmed youth. She doesn't care about problems like kitchen sink faucets malfunctioning. I went through a backwards youth where I learned to focus on faucet problems with earthquake intensity and earthquakes with faucet periphery. I'm going to break one day. One day my wife yanked the faucet out to wash a glass and I said, "Babe, what are you doing? If the sink breaks, if the sink breaks, no one will be able to fix it." I keep throwing my scared at her, the fear that's become the pedagogy of me. She looks at me stoic, handled before it even started, and she says, "Babe, I don't want it to break either. I'll be careful." She hugs me and says, "Except for this last time." And she pulls the faucet out, she sprays herself, then she sprays me, sprays herself, sprays me again. And I won't laugh. I'm trying to be serious. But she waters me like a plant, knowing that I'll laugh, knowing that like the fever, I'll break. All right. That's it from me. Thank you for the golf claps. Next up, we have William Stieglitz. Take it away, William.
Thank you, Bobby. So I think we could all use some comedy in our diets. So I'm going to read a piece called Quarantine To-Do List. Step 1, hit snooze. Step 2, hit snooze again. Step 3, bathroom necessities. Step 4, I somehow ended up back in bed. Consider once more hitting snooze. Step 5, TV breakfast. It's important to multitask. Step 6, showering. That's still a thing. Step 7, hair gel. Just because I'm in quarantine doesn't mean my hair should suffer. Just gotta figure out the rationing. Step 8, go for my morning walk. I am in the rare and fortunate position that I can leave my home and go for walks around my street. This has taken the place of my morning video game time, as it serves the same purpose. I must anticipate the trajectory of and dodge oncoming people. As the obstacles will not move for me, I must plan 2 to 3 moves ahead. Step 9, lunch. Nutrition between 2 slices of bread. Step 10, writing time. Step 11, research the news developments I have been avoiding. Step 12, cower in fear of the news developments I have been avoiding. Step 13, try getting into the news one more time. There is the death toll, dysfunctional government, bigots protesting against safety, more dysfunctional government, hate crimes, the racist criminal justice system, and dysfunctional government. Step 14, relax with the video game Animal Crossing New Horizons. Step 15, remember I do not own a copy of the video game Animal Crossing New Horizons. Step 16, play Kirby instead. Somebody has to save Dreamland. Step 17, go for another walk. Step 21, dinner. Steps 18 through 20 had to be sacrificed. There wasn't enough time to review emails, do laundry, and return to my writing. Step 22, homework. That's still a thing. Should have done that earlier. Step 23, watch old sitcoms before getting ready for bed. Step 24, fall asleep. Step 25, actually fall asleep. Step 26, okay, this time don't just think about falling asleep, actually do it. Step 27. But I was so exhausted. How can I be this not tired now that I'm in bed? Step 28. Return to step 1. Thank you, everyone.
Thank you, William. That was great. Next, we have Chelsy, Diaz, Amaya.
All right, so this is an excerpt from an untitled essay. I think of my childhood in terms of color. I used to ride around the neighborhood in my secondhand pink bike with chipped purple flowers. I dug my feet in its white petals, moved my legs faster, waited for the moment the wind created blue and green hues in my peripheral vision when I could stop pedaling and cruise onwards. In elementary school, I wore blue platform Lizzie McGuire sneakers my dad bought for me from Payless. The platform had a dark blue line that wrapped itself around the middle as if it were hugging my stance in place. The bottom had rubber blue dots that reminded me of bubble wrap. Lizzie's cartoon face sported the classic confused but confident look. I only had to try this pair once to know they were made for me. The ladies at Payless glanced at me tiredly as I put them on my feet immediately after purchase. On school picture days, I wore fuzzy red Walmart sweaters, black combat boots, and blue butterfly chokers my mother knit for me. It was on a school picture day that a girl in my class asked me to name the color of my skin, to which I confidently said, ginger. My kindergarten backpack was a baby pink. Senior year, black. I still use it. My mother wants me to get a new one, wants to store it away in the basement like she's done with the rest of my backpacks, but I haven't found a better color to represent me yet. When did my childhood become dust on a cardboard box? I ask a friend. Why is adulthood a screaming blank page? She asks in return. Because adulthood is typing a sentence and then deleting it, I respond. But I keep trying to figure out what color blank is, what color delete is. The only answer that comes to mind is yesterday when I heard my neighbor come home from work. His hollow cheeks drove down the block in a sad routine. His porch light turned on as soon as his car touched the front of his driveway. It was as if the house was waiting for him to come home, but his empty eyes did not appraise how the sunset cast orange spots all over the roof. What I'm trying to say is, I know what it's like to wait for something so badly and then receive the colorless version of it. My neighbor fell that evening. He opened the door of his silver Toyota, tripped on his black shoelace, and landed face first on the gray cement. He grimaced into a sitting position, took his glasses off, and examined their brokenness. The porch light stayed on, and I, pale-faced and distant, stood watching from my living room window. Thanks.
Great, thank you, Chelsy. Next, we have Jennifer Cooper.
Hello, everyone. I'm going to read some fragments that I wrote this semester that will hopefully, God willing, be a part of my thesis. The Big O. I stand on the precipice of the bay, crusty rocks on the pads of my toes. I remove earbuds in favor of the ocean's melody. The waves are a mage casting a trance, singing their siren song, but the sun's reflection on the water is louder than the ocean itself. Wooden poles that shoulder the dock show relics of where the water had once swelled when the moon drew the tides to rise. At one time, I would have wrinkled my nose at the sulphurous sea, but now it is sweeter than the scent of my cherry chapstick. The ocean is my atlas with more to explore than the redwood forest. Not that I have ever been there, of course. A comprehensive list of things my father likes, 2020. My cat. A comprehensive list of things my father likes, 2015. Cooking shows, beer, maybe my mom. A comprehensive list of things my father likes, 2010. Cooking shows, my old cat Smokey, Home Depot, gardening, only strawberries, green beans, and eggplant, maybe immediate family. A comprehensive list of things my father likes, 2005. It's hard to remember, but I'll give it a go. Fishing, I think. Roller coasters, my old cat Sunshine, photo albums, The Grateful Dead, his friend Paul, listening to loud music in the car, the Mets taking us to Yankees games, family vacations, taking my brother on Boy Scout trips, Emerald Lagasse, grilling, home improvement projects, sitting on the patio in the backyard, maybe extended family. A comprehensive list of things my father likes, 2000. I was only 3, but I like to think, if I could remember, that the list would be a few pages. Maybe I would even be toward the top. Life and ocean away. From the waterfront house with 3 front doors, the ocean shimmers brighter than the hood of the ageless Porsche parked in the driveway. The water is clearer than the Windex windows that stretched from polished wood to crown molding. The owner collects rare nickels and first edition books, the ones you can't touch. Out front, there's a bench on the driveway stones where you can sit vigil for the jagged ocean rocks that were stolen and molded into something known. Square shaped trees imprison the property, complete with an acid lawn mown almost to my father's standards. I had dreamed of this home perched on the sand, but there's no way someone could call this a home, with its sharp grooved roofs incongruent to the push and pull of the shore. A man 30 years taller would beckon me through one of the 3 portals with the promise of a home I've never known. I have always mourned turning an ocean into a pond. To build a home. Stand on the shoulder of giants to assemble walls of pebbles, construct a weather-worn porch of daisies and sunflowers, favor a house with chipped paint and clipped corners and floors of overgrown brambles. Thank you.
Great, thanks, Jen. Next, we have Mackenzie Watterson.
Hi, folks. I'm going to be reading an excerpt from my short story, Spawn. It's from the middle of the story. So in this story, the main character is named Mel. She's a social worker, and she's on a rafting trip with her boyfriend, Daniel. "My lady," Daniel called out. Mel painted a smile on her features. "Your chariot awaits." He splayed his arms wide. "Come on, hun, get in." Chariot. That was a good word for it. He'd really done it. The raft, borrowed from a buddy, burst with gear. The green 12-foot rubber oval, tightly pumped full, carried an aluminum fishing frame, a low seat in the middle for oaring, a perch seat in the back for fishing, hooks to store nets, rod brackets, poles, fly boxes. She hugged Daniel. "This looks amazing, thank you." He held her hand, unnecessary but warm, to balance her. She climbed into the rear fishing seat. "Let's get on the water, Captain." Daniel settled in the seat in front of her, lower than hers, with his back to her, leveled and center with the raft. Oars rested in their cradles on either side of him. He grasped them and, with large arcing arms, stroked. Each arm roved in an opposite direction. "Where are you trying to go?" Mel laughed. The river." Veins poked out between his knuckles, crept up his forearms, still rowing opposite. "Well, Daniel grunted. If he kept going, they'd be at the mercy of the current. The raft moved in slow circles. Mel leaned forward and pulled up a fly rod. They were still in the eddy. The current was gentle. "You're doing great." Things between them had been so rough. He would figure it out eventually. Better he did it on his own. She needed time to tie her line anyway. "Why don't you pull out a fly rod?" He breathed heavy between words. "Cast a line while I get us out of this river edge thingy." "Eddy, Daniel. It's an eddy." But he was trying. "Great idea," she said. Mel cradled the rod between her knees and pulled a fly box from the pocket of her fishing vest. The water below them churned, clouding with brown mud. "Just gotta get a hang of these things." Another grunt against the oars. "We'll be out of here in no time." Daniel would soon have blisters on his hands. They'd pop and raise sharp edges on his palms. She would feel them for weeks, scraping against hers in every lead and turn. Dancing, that's how they'd met, at the stirrup of all places, full of cowboy boots and good old boys. A painting loomed over the dance floor there, men dangling in a barn. Old West vigilante justice, most said. Lynching, others whispered. Mel had peered at it in the dusty red light bar haze. She couldn't tell, so she left. But there wasn't a jazz joint in town, and she had to dance somewhere. The night she finally went back, he'd asked her to dance. His hands were rough but firm, warm like his leads. He'd even learned the Lindy Hop for her. A pussy dance, his buddies called it. But he did it anyway. A mayfly landed on Mel's knee. Around the raft, insects darted, polka-dotted the air. She leaned in to examine the one on her knee. Blue-winged olive mayfly, a perfect spring hatch for fishing. I already rigged the pole for you, Daniel said. Mel ran the line through her fingers until they met the end. Tied there was a blue-winged olive. You really thought of everything, she said. Daniel paused his rowing, turned, and blew her a kiss. You even got the hatch right. Mel flicked a practice cast. There were not fish in this eddy. Of that Mel was certain. Sure, there had been trout lingering in the pool, but they would have fled at Daniel's first uncoordinated oar slap. He had never blown her a kiss before. Her stomach lurched. I just really think you deserve a relaxing day. Again, Daniel thrust the oars in opposite directions. A day where nobody needs you. All this stress, it's not us, he grunted. It's your job. Mel cast her line into the mud. Thanks. But couldn't he see? He needed her, right now, today. He planned a whole rafting trip and he couldn't even oar the thing, couldn't get them onto the river, much less navigate it safely. You're right, Daniel. My job is stressful. And she needed to get this trip over before midnight. Dee, could you just try rowing in sync? What? He stopped. Just coordinate your arms in the same direction. He rowed and the raft lurched. Mel caught her fly rod from falling off the raft. There you go, using that strength where it counts. Geez, Daniel laughed, oaring and jolting the raft toward the river. Guess I was trying too hard. Now this is a raft, not a cow. Give it a little finesse. He stopped laughing. I'm not an idiot, Mel. Thank you.
Thank you, Mackenzie. Next, we have Lindsay Adkins.
Hi, everyone. First of all, thank you to Bobby and to Frank for organizing this. This is so great. What a treat to hear everyone's pieces and to be able to read and share with all of you. So I'm going to read 3 poems that I've written recently in quarantine. So they're very new and fresh. The first one is called The Waiting, and it is dedicated to my unborn daughter. The Waiting. The morning breathes and stretches, shows us again that it does not wait for us. Trees push into their buds, birds manage to make their lungs work. I wait for everything to become something else, just so I can write it down. Your father, a shadow in the half-light as he puts on gloves to wait in line at the grocery store. Because we have joined you in your unborn pause, you, unaware as the birds, taking your time to push into your unformed lungs and breathe. You, the un-everything. We listen to our bones now too. Hold our hands up to the amniotic light at the window, breathe into our stomachs. Can we do it? Or does the virus sniff around in our blood, ready? I can shape this world for you, not lie, but whisper that we were unafraid. We were unwavering. We were un-everything. All we wanted was to be more like you, muffling the sounds beyond the walls, waiting in the dust, hoping for warm arms when the door opens. This next poem is called In Google Classroom. and is about my new experiences teaching online to middle schoolers, which is interesting. Okay. In Google Classroom, I have assigned my students a more holistic vocab assessment that would elate my supervisor. Use 10 of the words from sections 8 and 9 to write a 3-paragraph narrative. One student messages me to ask if they should use the first person or third person point of view. And I question if the afternoon light cares, if that squawking blue jay cares, whether this kid's future employer cares, if the story itself even cares. In Google Classroom, I am who I have always been, typed up and posted for everyone to view. Too much yes. I will reply immediately. I will say it again in a different way until you understand. Overcome turns into deal with. Adequate becomes enough. I will read your rough draft and mark each time you used a lowercase I. Answers upon answers and only crumbs of questions for myself where my I is concerned. I've always wondered at it being called the first person, a single naked line slipping into the lake, a lonely child perched on a low tree branch, telephone pole after telephone pole across the empty fields, carrying questions and answers from me to you, to her, to him, to them, or just the blinking of a cursor in a message box before I type, either is enough. And then this last one is called Pandemic Pareidolia. It is an ekphrastic that was based on a piece of art by Laura McCullough that was on rattle.com. I don't know, maybe a lot of you probably know, but Rattle does a ekphrastic challenge every month. And anyway, so Pandemic Pareidolia. You can't imagine it, but we are all hungry for the blackness, the yellowness of bees, anything for a sting in the mouth, mask covered. You see faces everywhere these days, the brain like an overripe banana, a sideways smile to throw into the blender onto your mouth, or the mouth of the metal hook by the door where you used to hang your sweater to go out, empty. 2 screws for eyes, a knob with a reflected smile, that shaft in the head, curved as the sunny forsythia branch your father-in-law cut and vased by the fireplace, or the dandelion stems wilting in your friend's sweaty palm, under your chin. Do you like butter? Curved as the bananas your grandmother used to slice with one hand, pressing the blade's teeth through the mush and into her thumb, smiling as the pieces fell into her cereal. Boomerang a crescent moon and it will all come back. The bees to the dandelion, the sweater to its hook, the branch to its tree, the banana to the bowl by the window, the same one where you sit and watch for faces that wrinkle with pleasure, chap and peel in the wind, don't need to be found. Thank you.
That was great. Thank you, Lindsay. Next, we have Jesi Halprin.
Hi. So my goal with this reading is to get through without one of my dogs barking, but something tells me that's not up to me. I'm going to be reading the first few pages from a story from my thesis called Iger. The ground surrounding the house is a wasteland of broken things. Every window is open, letting in the early spring breeze and the smell of winter melting away. Fletcher has given up arguing, and instead he follows me from room to room, retrieving what is salvageable. He piles what he can in the center of the kitchen, a throw blanket he burned by sitting too close to the fireplace when he was a teenager, a candle his girlfriend bought me for first Christmas they were dating, a pair of his father's reading glasses I thought about for a long time before releasing them to the yard. I will toss it all from the windows again when he leaves for the boat. Finishing the living room with one last look to make sure it's all gone. Cushions and pillows from the couch were the first to go out the window. Then the TV went with the cable box, which we stopped paying for years ago, but never returned to the cable company. I I rolled the rugs into logs and tossed them out too. 3 rugs in total on the first floor. All of the decorative items followed. Vases with no meaning, figurines used as placeholders to give the space good energy, and coffee table books. I had a particular fondness for the books, but they needed to go. None of it means anything, not anymore. A couch with no cushions, and 3 dozen framed magazine covers that formed a grid on the wall were all that remained. Archived on the cover of every climbing and mountaineer magazine, my husband will never be forgotten. I couldn't bring myself to remove them from the wall or to touch the magazines that have formed a mountain in the corner of the living room from the past year and a half. I don't want to see the biographical articles and the in memoriam words remembering a life that pioneered, because to me, he wasn't the celebrity he was when he was in the mountains. At home, the mountains were far away, although there was talk of them and preparation for new summits. I could pretend like they didn't exist. I could pretend he was going to stay. Making my way to the stairs, the toe of my boot catches on a depression in the wood floor. A rug covered this mark for the past 20 years. I had forgotten that we didn't always have the shed in the backyard. My husband used to clean and prep his equipment in the house. Fletcher was 4 when my husband left an ice tool on the kitchen table. Luckily, Fletcher only dented the floor with it. But after that, I made my husband build the shed in the backyard to store his equipment. I didn't think he minded, though. It was his space, like the greenhouse was mine. When I reach the top of the stairs, I hear Fletcher banging around below me. Please stop this, he says, at the foot of the stairs with an armful of pots and pans I had thrown from the window over the kitchen sink. He clings to frying pans smeared with dirt and weeds and pots that hold clumps of grass. Maybe it's time you find your own place, I say to him. I want to be here with you, he says, with what sounds like just desperation in his voice. You're almost 25, I say, having to look away from him. His thick eyebrows and uncontrollable hair are his father's exactly. It doesn't matter. Dad left the house to both of us. You'll just leave me in the end like he did. I pick at the wood banister, worsening one of the many chips, a chronicle of the years of bumps from laundry baskets, soccer cleats from when Fletcher still found team sports interesting, fishing gear when he found the quiet more attractive. That's not fair. He didn't leave you. He drops the pots and pans on the floor, adding to the scuff marks, and starts up the stairs. I move toward the master bedroom. Standing in the doorway, I notice how square the room is. The room's symmetry is nauseating. I hear Fletcher's bedroom door slam shut. Opening each window on either side of the bed and punching the screens out, I listen to them clatter onto the deck. We didn't wash the screens as often as we were supposed to. Each of the nightstands fits through the window frame like a child's toy that teaches shapes. They fall to the deck and splinter into pieces. I yank each drawer from the dresser. They aren't meant to dislodge. When Fletcher realized what was happening, he cleared the dresser and closet of my husband's clothes and hid them. My husband has been gone for 2 wedding anniversaries now. For the first time, I left everything the way it was. It didn't feel right to move anything, and in a way, I was in denial. His partner was there, and 2 more of his friends from here flew out when they got the news. They went to help his partner bring him home. This is what they do when one of them falls. Because my husband was so well known in the mountaineering community, there were at least 12 people waiting at the airport when he arrived. I stood there with Fletcher while my husband's friends hugged and cried with one another. If it could happen to him, it could happen to any of them. He was the best, they all said to me, one after another. He is the best, I replied. He is the best. Thank you.
Great, thanks, Jesi. Next, we have Jillian Larussa.
Hey, everyone. So these pieces are a collection that I've been writing about growing up on Long Island. I am an island girl, and the dialect of my people is Long Italian. The rules are simple. Your P's are B's, and your C's are G's, and you're never wrong, so long as you're loud enough. The culture is borrowed from parents that fled the city and the boroughs, and Native Americans that got to keep the names of their towns and little else. I am an island girl, better with salt crusted in my curls and local beer on my breath. I can sniff out low tide, and I can extract the shelled bits that stab the flex arches of my feet with only my fingers, and I once lost a shoe to the waves of Robert Moses. I wouldn't swim there again until I was older, wiser, shoeless. I am an island girl raised on jellyfish stings that look like rings from hickeys as they bloom on my sunburnt shoulders. I am always sunburnt, but the skin of my people is a false orange, waxed and rubbed and polished like stone. I am an island girl, and here I belong, but I do not want to factor an hour of traffic into my commute. I do not want to impress the same bevy of unimpressive people. I do not want to claim this monochromatic slab of money my home, but speak to me, and there's its coffee vowel call in my accent. Look at me, and there's its shape, fished from the lines of my forehead. Cast me away, and there's my plot, my eternal island time, in the cemetery with its own train stop. There are bones on the beach. There are turtle bones on the beach of this town, on this island upon which I have lived my entire life. I've seen a lot on the sand. When we first moved farther east, my mother told us she found needles bobbing in the weak waves lapping only 10 miles from our new home. And on the opposite side, the South Shore, red seaweed swirls in soy sauce water. I've seen horseshoe crabs turned husks, and I flung them back out to the sound by their tails, swinging with my whole body like I could fly away too. There are turtle bones washed up on the sand, and we are greedy girls in our one pieces with designs stretched white at our round bellies. We gun down the beach to catch a glimpse of this beast battered and bleached by the brutal combination of Long Island wind and water. We are a result of its breeding, barely bad and dying for a chance to become a bumper stickered reference on our cousin's Nissan Altima. We are undeterred because nothing's really happened or has happened or will happen to us until now, and we can smell it in the air, the cloying splash of bigness and brightness and bony turtle brine. In the 6th grade, island children learn about train safety. We converge like flies to coconut meat in auditoriums for a 2-period-long VHS tape that buzzes as it runs, no matter how loud our principal raises the volume. Island children grow up on trains. Our parents work for an alphabet soup of transportation acronyms, and we can parrot watch the gap before our little limbs are big enough not to fit between platform and car. We tell tall tales about the third rail. The video comes to its triumphant close when the protagonist is exploring a rail yard. A train comes hurtling towards her, and it cuts back and forth until kinetic meets potential. The final shot, her legs jerking to the side. Island children must infer the rest. There are 2 reactions. I embody the first. Island rain rushing tears to my eyes that I try to hide from my friends. The second is nothing, not on our end. No lesson, no response, just letting our teachers down as maybe even a laugh bubbles to the surface. We are 11. But 7 years later, one of us from that auditorium goes to the city and parties with his friend, once a teammate, now a freshman in college. The island child gets drunker than he thought, and when he enters the subway, it is on the wrong side of the platform. It's easier to run across, and it's sound logic to him, so like a mosquito to the soft crook of a neck, he's off. But the glow of warmth on his skin is not the sun. Island boy gets one last hand before the northbound A train shows his buddies how quickly we burst. In the 6th grade, island children learn about death. We converge like flies to rotting turtle meat in auditoriums for a 2-period-long VHS tape that teaches us we are nothing more than a buzz caught by the wind. Thank you.
Thank you, Jillian. Next, we have Valerie San Filippo.
Hello. I'm going to be reading an excerpt from my thesis, a novel called Bog Witch. Just to give some context, in this scene, the narrator, Sigrid, has gotten into a weird state of mind because she's been like communing with nature, so she realizes she's only ever consumed things that are dead. So she decides to rectify this. Other context you need to know, the boy who shows up, Haskell, is an apprentice to the town priest, and Sigrid hates both of them. I'm concerned now that I've only ever eaten dead things, so I circle around the side of the house where the little garden is fenced in by woven hazel branches. I swing the gate and hurry in and frighten a small white butterfly from its perch on the bean trellis. It's nearly a high harvest for crops, so the garden is all leaves, lush and green plants sprouting as high as my waist in places, giant leaves smooth and dark and shiny, and other bushes of leaves so thin and feathery they almost look like nettle. But most of the riches of this garden are hidden underground. The radishes and parsnips and carrots, those, I suppose, technically don't die when you pull them from the ground, since you can replant them and they'll keep growing. But I've never eaten a root that doesn't have the dirt rubbed away and the spindle roots cut off, and I'd rather not eat dirt. There's also celery, which, if you cut it and then plant it in a bit of water, will sprout from itself. So does that count as dead? Maybe. Or is it more like a cutting from a tree grafted onto itself? I need something more concrete, less complicated. I just want to eat something that's alive. There's a bush of chamomile by the gate, little yellow fuzzy flowers just in bloom. I lean over the bush, crane my neck. I find a flower, line up my mouth, and stick out my tongue. The petals of the flower are rough and papery, and I bite down, my teeth cutting through the stem. My mouth fills with bitter perfume. It doesn't taste much better than when it's dead. I wonder if there's some sort of wisdom in that. Life tastes no better than dead things, just sort of greener, a little peppery from the stems, maybe a little spicier. Maybe there's a little more potential to have been something. But then if celery can grow from its dead self, then maybe death has potential too. I finish chewing it, I swallow, and I don't feel any different. As I straighten up again and look out towards the fields, I see Haskell standing in the path beside the house. He's watching me. His orange hair catches in the sun. "Good afternoon," I say to him. Haskell scowls and says, "What are you doing?" "Looking at my chamomile plant." "I saw you eat it," he says, disgusted. He narrows his eyes. "I'm not an idiot. I know what you're up to." "Is that right?" I say. "This little shit wants to have a go with me? Fine, let him." Lick spittle. He might be Gower's pet, but Gower isn't around to protect him now. I say, "What exactly am I up to? It would be lovely to know." He trots up to the edge of the property and wraps his pale, claw-like hands around the fence post. "You know," he says, "this child, I want to jam my walking stick into his crotch and watch him writhe on the ground because someone needs to teach him pain." He lifts his nose in the air and says, "Well, I've been sent on a mission regardless, and I won't let someone like you get in my way. Is your mother home?" "No," I say, "I haven't seen her." His fingers twitch like spider legs. "She's not here," he says. I shake my head. "Well, do you know where she's gone?" "I do not," I say. He narrows his eyes as if he doesn't believe me. I try to shrug casually. It comes off more like a tick, since I've lost control of my shoulders. I stretch my neck, and then I roll my shoulders back so the pale skin is exposed just above my collar and it will catch his eye, and I see his gaze snag on me. I say, "She doesn't tell me anything." "No," he says, "I suppose she doesn't. I mean, who would trust a stupid girl like me with information anyway?" "Don't be so hard on yourself," he says. "I'm sure what they don't tell you is for your own good." "Oh, is that what Gower tells you?" I say. "No, actually, it's not," he replies. "In fact, I'm one of the few people in his life who he can fully confide in. Actually, he says I'm wise beyond my years. Actually, that is because I'm the only person around here who seems to respect wisdom." I can hear the spit pooling in the moist pockets of his mouth. "Yeah, you've always been so much better than the rest of us," I say. "I know. Someday I'll be rewarded for it. Yeah, some people say living well is the best reward. And some people are she-witches." He grins, and his snaggletooth, a second tooth which grew over the rest, peeks out and gleams like a fang over his wet lips. "Well, thanks anyway, Sigrid. You've been useless, but I don't know what I expected. I'll see you around." Haskell turns dramatically, then trips, falls into the road, and walks away.
Great, thanks, Valerie. Next, we have Rajdeep Paulus.
Hi, everyone. Thank you to everyone who's already read before. You guys are amazing. Hard act to follow. And just want to wish everybody good health and just wellness during this tough time. Here's a little story called Pockets. Had the same dream again last night. I'm leaning against a leafless maple tree deep in the forest. The floor, a carpet of foliage matted collateral from winter's whispers. He's here too, camera dangling from his neck, sunglasses slightly lowered on the bridge of his nose, jaw tight with determination. His eyes meet mine and his mouth relaxes into a smile. Close, closer, in front of me now. His hands circle my hips. The tip of his right thumb draws an invisible line along my waist, right above my belt buckle, just below the hem of my olive green sweater. He's searching for a pocket to tuck away his lopsided grin, suggestive, wanting. Problem is, I removed all the pockets from my life yesterday because pockets are for keeping things. I'm not interested in being kept. For saving things, I prefer to leave the change on the table. For warming hands, I'll steal back heat when summer returns. I push his hands gently aside and shrug my shoulders. I can't help it if you can't see me. Sometimes, most times, you see what you want to see. Back, further, hold still. The camera snaps and he captures my face. Also, maybe the moment that just passed when he thought I loved him, or he me. He still loves me. One always takes longer to let go than the other. The sight of my back walking away will be his last shot of me. That's all I ever planned to give him. He can keep that. File that photo in his pocket. Back I return. Like a camera lens turning, the dream vanishes out of focus. Back to forward I move, one real step at a time. In and out of pockets, in pockets, in pockets. Awake.
Great, thank you, Raj. That was great. Next, we have Mary Mannion.
Hi, thank you. I'm going to be reading an excerpt from a short story I wrote. Halfway through October, Cormac showed me his cigarette box coin collection. This was about the same time that he started wearing eyeshadow to school. The bell hadn't even rung for first period by the time he was handed a detention slip. Loose khakis frayed at the bottom, an untucked dress shirt, hair grazing his jawline, iridescent purple powder dusted across his eyelids like faint stars along the skyline. His eyes were always red and his eyelids were always low. Pupils dilated, an egotistical smirk. Everyone thought he was flirting with them. When the two of us arrived together at the fall dance, Mrs. Taylor shot me a disapproving look. Cormac snuck in a flask of something bitter, and he took swigs from it in the center of the dance floor to the beat of a pre-approved playlist of songs. That was last week. Now, he and I were standing together against the wall in the hallway leading to the school gym. Through the windows, we could see the parking lot and the cornfields, the tumbling parade of nothing but space that was all of Lincoln. So I started using this cigarette box because I didn't have a wallet. It's always stupid reasons like that, he said, pushing his hair back from his face. Sometimes gravity did me a favor and forced his bangs down over his eyebrows. His hair fell and my stomach flipped, and this was the usual routine. He pulled the box out of his pants pocket and shook it in the air. He flicked the lid open and shook out a dime, 2 nickels, a quarter. You know how they always give you back 1,000,000 coins anytime you buy something? Well, I needed a place to hold them. I didn't have a wallet, but you know what I have a lot of? What? Cigarette boxes. Are you going to smoke forever? I asked, fidgeting with a loose seam on my uniform skirt. What do you mean? I don't know, I said. Cormac couldn't be convinced of anything. He couldn't take suggestions. He could only make his own decisions, and to be told to do something was reason enough for him to do the opposite. It's just like, smoking's just so bad for you. Oh, come on. Come on, babe. He pressed his forehead up against mine. I scrunched my nose. It's not that bad. He pulled back. So you want to hear about this game I came up with? Yeah, I said, sure. It's simple. If I don't know what to do about something, I just take out a coin and flip it. Easy. Do you always stick to what it tells you? Of course. You want proof? Before I had time to respond, he yanked my arm and pulled me to the ground. The early evening sun shone through the glass of the windows above, illuminating the space around us with a soft glow. Do you have scissors? He asked. No, I said. Why? He looked down at the quarter in his hand. Should I cut my hair? Heads means yes, tails means no. No, I said. The coin flipped through the air and hit the floor's thin carpet with a putter of indecision as it wavered between heads and tails. Tails, he said. You got lucky, Lizzie. He took my face between his hands and kissed my forehead. That's not proof, I said. All right, he said. He picked up the coin. Should I pull the fire alarm? Cormac, stop. Heads means yes, tails means no. Flip, 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 through the air it went. It landed on tails. These are cop-outs, he said. I need to get a yes to prove to you that I really listen. It's fine, I said. You're just going to do something dumb. I felt that by telling him to stop, I filled a certain role. Like if we were both crazy, then maybe we wouldn't be good together anymore. No matter what I said, though, I didn't really want him to stop. I wanted him to keep going, to wow me with outlandishness, to never stop spinning. I worried that if he knew how much I craved his unpredictability, he'd quit altogether. Everything he did was to prove a point. If he knew I was restless too, then he'd find someone who wasn't. He only needed me because I was still. Thank you.
Great, thank you, Mary. All right, for the last reading of the evening, we have Carrie Cabral.
Hi, everybody. So I'm going to read the beginning of what is quite a long essay. And I just a heads up, this is about weight and body image in case anyone needs to be aware of that. And it's told in vignettes, otherwise it might be confusing. All right. 102. My 5th grade class sat in our makeshift cafeteria surrounded by Snapple bottles and snack bags of chips and Twinkies. It was June, and we just completed the presidential fitness test. We took the test outside since it happened to be a nice day, and we didn't actually have a gym. I had done only one pull-up, but had done well in the standing long jump and the mile run. Still, I was offended that I'd merely passed, since I was an athlete. In the other section of the cafeteria, the nurse was weighing people, one by one, and taking their height. This was apparently part of something. Maybe it was a fitness test, maybe it was a school-mandated physical. Nobody explained it, and we didn't ask. My group had already been called, the last names A through E, and we were sitting together under the Twinkies, listening to boys talk. What do you weigh, Jen? A boy named Sean asked, his voice flirtatious. 72, she replied, smiling. Jen, who lived down the street from me, had been my on-and-off friend since 1st grade, though by 6th grade we would essentially stop speaking. Not on purpose, but because boys liked her and not me. We both had our roles to perform. The boys all nodded and smiled approvingly, and one teased her about the size of her butt. She laughed. I wanted to throw up. I weighed 102 pounds. Never in my short life had I been in the triple digits. There must be something wrong with me, I reasoned. I'd have to lose weight. It was the only option to be, what, human? A girl? Worthy? I felt panic rising in my chest and wished I could do something to lose weight right that second. I'd stop eating. I'd run around my neighborhood all night. I'd do anything to be thin, no matter what it cost. Because if I wasn't thin, I was just nothing. I sat in fear of one of the boys asking me what I weighed, but none of them did. 204. In the shower, I desperately rubbed biotin shampoo into my scalp. I just added and added more. My hair had grown and curly. I'd gained over 60 pounds since my stem cell transplant last year. I hadn't wanted to admit how much I wanted to stay thin, but now there I was, fatter than ever, fatter than I ever was before cancer, with short, tight chemo curls. I also just found out that I needed glasses. I was the ugly girl in every teen movie, the pre-makeover girl. What's wrong? My boyfriend asked from outside the shower curtain. I'm 23, I cried. I'm supposed to be young and hot right now. I'm missing my prime. When my grandkids look at pictures of me, they're not going to be like, wow, Grandma, you were so beautiful. I'm just going to be this ugly, gross cancer person. Nick didn't say anything. If it helps, he finally replied, I don't think I've ever been young and hot. 127. I'm not sure why I'm having trouble finding the right spot, the neurologist said, as he tried to insert a large syringe filled with methotrexate into my back. Since there was a tumor on my skull, The doctors wanted to be extra cautious and insert the chemo directly into my spinal fluid so it would go to my brain. She's pretty thin. I loosened my grip on my mom's hands. For just a second, I forgot that my skin was crawling with fear, forgot about the pain of the needle searching for a gap in my spine, forgot that I was supposed to have moved past all this years ago. Thin? How wonderful to hear. Thanks, everyone.
Thank you, Carrie. That was beautiful. Thank you, everyone who read this evening. I want to give a specific congratulations to the people who are graduating. Who's graduating? Is it? Raise your hand. It's yeah. It's Valerie, Lindsay, Jesi. Congratulations. That's awesome. And thank you to all the readers. I really appreciate it. I really appreciate your work, and thank you to everyone who tuned in. If I don't see you on a screen over the summer, have a good summer and good luck with your work. I want to thank Frank Imperiale, who turned people and art into a screen for you to watch. And yeah, that rounds things out. Thank you so much, everybody.
And thank you for organizing.
You're welcome, Carrie. Thank you. All right, take care, everybody. Have a good summer.
Bye, everyone.